The hour of the red hair wonder has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not talking about Eustace Captain Kido. No, of course not. It's always been, baby. It's always been about SHANKS. Listen, this right here is part of the reason why a lot of longtime readers of One Piece are digging Egghead Island arc. When it comes to these story progression components, we are making strides, not just within the island arc itself, but outside of the main island too. We are making strides in the macro sense of the story. And it's the final saga, and Oda's clearly setting up an amazing, or at least so far I'd say, an amazing final saga of One Piece. It almost feels like every 2 to 3 chapters, we get like a Wano country in between acts moments. And it's really, really damn good, just on the regular. And right now, the man who can send ripples across the world, Shanks, is setting out to meet Eustace Captain Kido. Woo! Now, if you want to see my live stream reaction to the chapter, you know where to go, on my Cole Requiem channel, and of course on my twitch.tv channel as well. Number one. Number two is that, of course, we're going to break this down to its main components. Number one, the pacing and chapter structure. Number two, the character section of the chapter. And number three, the story progression components of the chapter. However, before we get started all that stuff, I do have to give a brief word for today's great sponsor, which of course is none other than the Surfshark VPN. So most of you guys and gals are weebs, right? Right? It is what it is. That's who we are. That's what we are.
Goddamn right.
As a result of being us, sometimes we do go to these very dark and dangerous corners of the web. Some folks would say these spots of the web are not for common folk, right?
That's beautiful.
And when we go to these spots, we do so in the name of knowledge and, of course, for culture.
Correct.
However, as a result, we do leave ourselves vulnerable to outside forces. Whether it's phishing attempts, viruses, malware, you name it, there are going to be bad actors out there in the World Wide Web that are going to try and ruin your day. Well, Surfshark VPN, without a doubt, can shut down a lot of these bad actors. When it comes to your online security, online privacy, Surfshark has your back in so many unique ways with so many damn good features, like the clean web feature that can snuff out any malware, any viruses that may be in certain areas of the web that you're perusing. And mind you, Surfshark VPN can be utilized on all devices, no matter where you are in the world. Whether it's iOS, Android, Linux, Macs, Windows, doesn't matter, Surfshark VPN can have your back. And what's also really important too, is that your boy does have region-gated content.
Impossible.
It is what it is. But with Surfshark VPN, you can get access to my region-gated content, one, and then two, any other region-gated content on various other platforms like Disney Plus, like Hulu, like Netflix. Just simply change the location that you're located in, and then boom, just like that, you can gain access to a host of content that previously you had no way of getting. So check out Surfshark VPN in the description box down below and use code KOL, that is KOL, to get not only 83% off, but also 3 months free off of your purchase of Surfshark VPN. Thank you, Surfshark VPN, for being awesome. And now, back to the video. Now, number one, as per usual, the pace and the chapter structure. For this chapter, we have a total of 4 parts. Very good when it comes to the pace and structure. So number one here is the Labo phase, the main lab building, the 4th floor, building A, with Luffy and company versus the Seraphim. Number 2 is inside of one of the lab rooms in container P001 with CP agents. Number 3 is Elbaf at a bar in a port along the coast of Elbaf. And then number 4 are the waters outside of Elbaf in conjunction with Shanks and the crew heading and leaving the port. As far as I can tell, nothing too wonky or crazy where folks during the stream are confused. It's overall, pretty damn good when it comes to the pace and structure of the chapter. And honest to God, that's it. Overall, really good. Now, number 2, we have, of course, the character components for this chapter. Number 1, Rob Gucci, aka Rob Lucci. So, Lucci is surprisingly honest, despite him being an assassin for the world government. Whereas Kingu, trying to be more conniving and slide on in, which is more true to form, Lucci's actually pretty straightforward and pretty honest. There is no hesitation when he answers Shaka and Luffy. He gets baited by Luffy's comments too, which are also genuine and not meant to be bait, but nonetheless, Lucci will only attack the others once Luffy is out of the picture. So I think that's relatively new when it comes to Rob Gucci's character. Number 2, SHANKS. Now, Shanks is willing to do non-violent transactions to get what he wants. Kid does not have to fight Shanks at all. Of course, he's choosing to, but nonetheless, the option is, hey, kid, you can hand over your rope pornograph rubbings, the goods, and you can run. This is very, very different than who? Blackbeard, who did not give Law at all any chance to have peaceful negotiations and snuck him. This is indicative of the pacifist nature of Shanks. And as far as we know, one of the reasons why the Gorosei were willing to talk to Shanks. Also, the Red Air Pirates do not take tributes for protection, which is indicative of the mindset of Shanks' crew and, of course, Shanks himself. Very different than other Yonko, like Kaido, of course, Wano Country, duh. But, of course, a good example, too, is Big Mom. Big Mom would have the citizens of Tautland, that entire section of the New World, else under control, donate 1 month of their lifespan every 6 months for Big Mom's protection and to be in Tautland. Also recall, at the beginning of the time skip, when the Strats arrive at Fishman Island, it's under Big Mom's protection, and the price for that country to wave Big Mom's flag was to donate a large sum of candy to Tautland every month. But prior to Big Mom's control, Whitebeard didn't ask anything of the fishermen. So Shanks appears to be very similar to Whitebeard when it comes to his territorial control. And then after Shanks for character is going to be Ben Beckman. Real quick here, like Shanks, he is also a ladies' man. When you're part of that clique, you tend to have some pretty fierce game, or as the kids say nowadays, Riz. I'm still not a fan of Riz, but it's slowly kind of growing on me because you young bucks. It is what it is. But this is something that was noted to either in SBS or Volume 4 Billion for Film Red, where it's stated by Oda or in that volume that Ben Beckman is a ladies' man. And now we're seeing that play out in real time in the manga. So that is it when it comes to the character sections of this chapter. And now finally, the story progression components of this chapter. Number 1 is S-Hawk. S-Hawk is revealed to have Das Bones Dice Fruit ability, which is a very fitting ability. And he does do an air kick, which you can argue is more like a storm leg or tempest kick that you would see the CP agents use. However, because his leg is a sword, you can argue it's actually more in the same vein as, let's say, a Phoenix Pound cannon that Zoro uses, because technically it's a kick, true, but it's a blade. But that being said, I do give a shout outs to Parvision, because whether it was in my convo with him or during the reverie, I do remember that he actually had an idea or a theory that S-Hawk would have Das Bones ability, and that has come true. Shouts to Parvision for damn sure. Now after that, we do have Rob Gucci exposing the world government plans to kill the Vegapunks to Luffy and company. So now they know what the deal is with CP0. Now after that, Nami does scream, which means that Brooke, Edison, her clique are in trouble. After that, Lucci and Kaku are freed, and then they team up with Luffy and Zoro. And on a side note, Gear 4 is back. The first time seeing it since his fight against Kaido, which means that Gear 5 is not going to snuff out Gear 4. It's still going to exist despite the hockey drawbacks. But keep in mind that during that fight against Kaido, particularly in chapter 1042, we do see Luffy go in between Bound Man and Snake Man without the need of powering down. So his Gear 4 state has gone better for damn sure. So we don't know right now if the Seraphim are going to be still in the building or if they're actually punted out of the building entirely. So we'll see how that plays out later on in the future. Now after this, there are other CP agents that were captured. CP5, 7, and 8 agents are trapped in the lab in this container called P001. This confirms what Rob Lucci said in chapter 1068. He was not lying, which does go very nicely in lockstep with his personality now. Rob Lucci is kind of straightforward and honest, and also shows you the scope, the magnitude of whoever is doing this, because those CP5 agents that are there in that tube, they were there from 2 months ago. So this plan, this individual who's trying to sabotage Vegapunk's whole shtick has been going on for a while, and we're not done yet. Because the next part, of course, of the story progression is that Vegapunk himself is held captain by said mystery person, which means it's not Vegapunk themselves. And what's crazy too is that this does match up with Big News Morgan's statements in 1074, though not by Luffy, but quote, the Vegapunk held hostage bit. So not only has this mysterious Sly Cooper and Thieves Assassin's Creed individual been plotting this out for at least 2 months, but also gave Big News Morgan's the tip-off, so a lot of the blame of what's going on would be on Luffy, even though it was themselves. Now after this, Vegapunk gives us more intel about what's going on Egghead Island, and the official version is a lot less vague compared to the scan version. They say definitively that there is poneglyph research being done on Egghead Island, which probably means that there is a poneglyph somewhere on Egghead Island. So it'd be kind of fitting for, of course, Robin to at some point get access to this poneglyph. And remember that Robin is with Atlas, and Atlas did talk about how she could have her face changed, or I guess any Vegapunk or anyone, I guess, in general on this island can have their face change because that tech allows them to do so in the first place. So this mysterious person, whether they're Vegapunk or not, is taking advantage of this face-changing capability to probably manipulate the Seraphim. That is the final component of story progression on the island itself. And now we jump off island from Egghead to Elbaf, another E, but this time a way more important E island, because Elbaf we know is gonna be robust. It is what it is. It only gets more and more and more robust as time goes on and on and on. Thematically, even matching the very first chapters of One Piece, where you have a giant version of Makino and potentially a giant version of Luffy, who at some point in the future in the sequel series of One Piece called E-Piece will be the main character. The E-Piece is real, baby. However, okay, it looks like Shanks and the boys about to dip. They're not gonna stay for that long. Kids here, true, whether or not it's gonna force Shanks and company to stay on Elbaf, we have to wait and see. The idea ultimately is that Shanks does want to leave Elbaf and probably, quote, deal with the Bartolomeo thing. However, he does want those road poneglyph rubbings. So you know my stance of the strongest individual that Luffy's gonna fight in Elbaf won't be Shanks, but Big Mom. If Shanks is gonna be here, then most likely Big Mom will be the one to fight against Luffy, I think, at the end of Elbaf. That's my stance. I could be wrong, but we'll wait and see. But after this, we do find out from Lucky Roo that it is Ben Beckman that the kid pilot should be most upset at. Ben Beckman. Likely meaning that Ben Beckman was the one who removed Kid's arm during the time skip. It's explained that Kid couldn't even see Shanks. Not even a single strand of hair. And this harkens back to an old comment about how Yonko forces run so deep that it's very rare to actually get a glimpse of the Yonko themselves. And this also might, keyword here, might mean that the main focus of the Kid Pirates would be Ben Beckman. But keep in mind that there is another component to this whole thing with Shanks, and that is Dory and Brogy. Shanks and his crew are old friends with Dory and Brogy, the giant warrior pirates. This includes Oimo and Kashima as well. In fact, in the Viz translation, the bartender, she refers to the captains as our captains, meaning that these two, this kid and her, are under the wing, the protection of the giant warrior pirates. That being said though, the fact that Shanks is friends with Dory and Brogy is a big deal. The giant warrior pirates that way back when wreaked havoc across the world. That is a big deal because we know that the power of the giants globally is feared, and he is allies with these key members. So if there was a Marineford War situation and it involved Shanks and the Red Air Pirates, the giant warrior pirates would pull up. The guys that Whitebeard had were nice, don't get me wrong. The giant warrior pirates? Woo! Man, that is some charisma. That is some sauce that Shanks has. It's thick. Runs deep. Wow. And Kid is about to face all this down with one ship. This chapter, I think, is absolutely outstanding, particularly when it comes to the story progression components of this chapter. However, I'll admit too, when it comes to the character parts of this chapter, not so robust. But here is one of the main things, you could argue the main thing, that's important for establishing the final saga moving forward. One of the ideas, or you can argue the main idea for, let's say, Luffy's rivals before the final saga was the other supernova. So cats like Kid, cats like Law, cats like Urouge, Hawkins, Capone, and so on and so forth. And now Kid and Law are dealing with, you could argue, the real rivals that Luffy has to compete with to attain the One Piece treasure. Blackbeard and Shanks, those two cats. And unfortunately, Kid and Law are very likely to not reach the shores of Laugh-Tale. But Blackbeard, and definitely I'd argue Shanks, are way more likely to reach those shores of Laugh-Tale. Someone like Blackbeard, less so, because we know what Whitebeard said at the end of Marineford War. That, hey, Blackbeard, the person that Raj is waiting for is not you. But nonetheless, the idea ultimately is to set up the true Prima rivals for Luffy moving forward in this final saga. Luffy has to deal with Kizaru and like a giant compendium of ships. Actually, I forgot this too. Kizaru has 100 marine ships coming through. In the scans, they say of all sizes, but in the official, there's no indication of the size of these ships. So if all of these ships, 100 ships, are pulling up and they're each the size of those gigantic battleships, then Luffy and company are gonna have to deal / escape from that whole situation and successfully get Vegapunk. Law and Kid are going to fail because they're gonna usher in the new rivals of Luffy for the final saga, Shanks and Blackbeard, whereas Luffy is going to succeed in his current endeavors with Kizaru and Vegapunk and 100 marine ships, 10 times more than a Buster Call, where there's only 10 ships. And the world globally is going to view him higher in the pecking order than the other cats. Even though that's already the case because he's a Yonko, because their bounties are the same, we needed an extra step forward for Monkey D. Luffy. It is what it is. Real quick, shout out to Panda Man. We do see Panda Man in the last page, the top panel, where we have Shanks and company walking forward, and Shanks being hugged on by these two individuals, number one. Number two is that in that same panel, the sword is actually on the wrong side of Shanks' waist. It should be on the right side, not the left side. And then lastly, the next chapter is going to come out on Shanks' birthday. So I am expecting Oda to show us something of Shanks and the Red Hair Pirate crew. At least the crew. Hopefully Shanks himself does something. So, on that note, this chapter, 9.5 out of 10. Woo! 9.5 out of 10. I would give it a higher rating, but the character section I don't think was all that robust. So a 9.5 out of 10 in my book for this chapter of One Piece.